Hey everyone, I'm here at the Google Pixel event in New York City where we saw lots of new products that Google announced, such as the Nest Mini, the Nest Wi-Fi, but more importantly perhaps, the Pixel 4, the company's latest phone, and it's packed with a bunch of improvements such as face unlock that's secure, gestures to control music tracks, and an enhanced camera. Let's take a look. So let's touch quickly on design. I have the Pixel 3 XL from last year in my right hand, and I have the new Pixel 4 XL in my left hand. First off, the colors are obviously different. There's 3 colors for the Pixel 4. It comes in Oso Orange. It's a limited edition, as you can see here. And there's also really black and clearly white. So the not pink that debuted on the Pixel 3 is no longer available. And obviously you can see that there's a pretty big design change, and that's a theme that Google was working on because they decided, hey, we're adding a second camera, let's go ahead and change up the entire design. So obviously the first thing you can notice is gone is the two-tone look that has been pretty much there on every single Pixel phone. Here it's still all glass, as well as here it's all glass, except now there's no delineation between 2 different types of textures. It's just matte glass, so it doesn't attract a lot of fingerprints. Now on the really black model, you are getting a glossy glass. So if you're someone that wants that glossy look, go for the black model, but do remember that that will attract a lot more fingerprints than the matte orange one and the clearly white one as well. Otherwise, I really like how this feels. And of course, the other 2 new features are the Pixel Square is what they're calling it, and that's this big black icon here that houses the 2 cameras on the back. And of course, the other one is the black band surrounding the phone. And you can see here that nicely frames up the rear design, and it makes it something that you don't really see every day. And the other benefit is that it also sort of masks away all these other things that we don't really need to see, like the speaker grill, USB-C port, the SIM card slot, the volume rocker, all of that sort of nicely hidden away. And of course, the accented power button does remain. Let's talk about the displays. You're getting a 5.7-inch screen on the Pixel 4. You're getting a 6.3-inch screen on the Pixel 4 XL. Both are OLED screens, full HD plus resolution on this one, and quad HD plus on this one. Now, what really is interesting though is the fact that these support a 90 Hertz screen refresh rate. That means you're getting a lot more frames per second. Traditionally, most phones have 60 frames per second. These have 90 frames per second. That just makes everything feel a lot more responsive. It's a feature that we've seen on phones like the OnePlus 7 Pro or the OnePlus 7T, and that's really exciting because it just makes everything a lot more fluid and responsive. Especially games that support 90 frames per second will feel definitely more receptive to your touches, and that's always exciting. Now, when you look over on the front, you can see that there is a sizable bezel at the top. I don't think it's that bad. It's not terribly thick. I do definitely prefer it over the notch that we can see on the Pixel 3 XL, but there's a reason that all of that is there. There's a lot of sensors underneath that bezel, and what those sensors do is house Google's Soli technology. That's radar sensing, so it enables the phone to be able to capture gestures. So anytime I do gestures like waving my hand on top of it, it'll be able to control specific actions of the phone. For example, I was able to play music through YouTube Music, and as I was playing it, I just placed the phone on this table right here, and I was able to just wave my hand back and forth to switch between tracks back and forth. The same was true with the clock app. When I set an alarm, I was able to quickly just dismiss it with a wave of my hand. It works really well. It's really responsive, much better than what I've seen with the LG G8 ThinkUse gestures that tried to do something similar. Even better though, all of these gestures work when the phone is in the always on display. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I need to leave the screen on for this to really be effective. But no, I left the phone on the table, it went into the always on mode, and it was still playing music. I just did a quick wave of my hand and it switched the songs pretty quickly, no problems whatsoever. That's really exciting, and I think it's going to be one of my favorite features on the Pixel 4, surprisingly. The other big deal is face unlock, and that's what's also in here. And it's a big deal because it's not the ordinary face unlock you get on other phones that just sort of unlock the phone. This is secure face unlock, so what it does is it can let you authenticate purchases on Google Play, access sensitive apps like your banking app pretty quickly without needing for a fingerprint sensor or entering a password. All of the stuff that basically you can do on Apple's Face ID on the iPhone. Even more interesting is the Soli technology sort of helps prime the cameras up before you even start to pick up the phone. So as soon as the phone detects that you're reaching for it, it'll prime those cameras up, and by the time you sort of look at the phone's screen, it'll already unlock and it will go to the home screen. You don't need to swipe, you don't need to tap, you don't need to do anything. It's really fast, and Google's saying it's the fastest face unlock system yet. We'll definitely test that claim, but so far from what I can see, it is dead fast. So one of my biggest concerns was with the screen. The Pixel 3 screen was nice, but it wasn't very bright. I had a really hard time looking at it in direct sunlight. That's something I hope has been fixed here, especially with DisplayMate awarding this phone an A+ score. I'll definitely be doing some testing, but so far there was a lot of light just earlier shining on these phones, and I was able to see the screen pretty clearly. So promising so far. I think the screen might be finally really good here, something comparable to Samsung's Galaxy Note 10 Plus, but we'll definitely be putting it to the test. Now these phones are running the Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 processor, not the Plus model that you'll find on the OnePlus 7T. The Snapdragon 855, the same one that's in the Galaxy Note 10 Plus or the Galaxy S10 and other Android flagship phones. That's, fine. It's at the end of the year, so we're going to see the Snapdragon 865 soon, and all of that will be in new phones starting early next year, so this might feel a little bit dated, but it feels really fast in the brief time I've been using it. Everything is operating quickly, and I don't think you'll have any problems running the latest games on this phone. It comes with 6 gigs of RAM, only 64 gigs of internal storage, which is kind of a bummer because, at this price, I feel like we should start seeing 128 gig as the standard, but Apple is also doing it, and hey, calling out Apple for doing that as well. My biggest worry is battery life. There's a lot of tech in these phones, from the 90 Hz screen to the gestures to always-on assistant. Basically, I'm worried that these phones are not going to last a day because Google seems to have skimped on the battery a little bit. There is a 2800 milliamp hour capacity on the Pixel 4, whereas there is a 3700 milliamp hour capacity on the Pixel 4 XL. So obviously Pixel phones are known for the great camera experience, and hopefully we're looking at a lot of great changes that make it even better on the Pixel 4. So first off, you're getting a dual camera system. That second lens is now a 16 megapixel telephoto lens that's joined with the 12 megapixel standard lens. So telephoto lens now offers up a 2x optical zoom, but it also is still working in conjunction with Google's super res zoom feature. So now basically you can zoom in all the way to 8x for digital zoom, but Google is doing a lot of work to clean up that image and making it look really nice so it doesn't look like your traditional zoomed in shots that are done digitally. But keep in mind, Google is also saying it's better to pinch and zoom and capture the shot like that rather than cropping your image after the fact, because all of that work is being done real time, so it's definitely better to pinch and zoom, don't crop. There are other substantial improvements to the Pixel 4. For example, night sight is getting an improvement. You can get better low light shots, and so much so that you can capture photos of the stars. There's an astrophotography push that Google is making. We'll have to test it out to see whether it only works if you're in a really dark area, or whether maybe I can get some starry skies here in New York City. Probably not. The other thing is white balance that's learning based. So basically it will adapt to the surroundings that you're in to offer up more natural looking colors because it's using the environment that you're in to learn what the white balance should be like and offering that up in the final shot. Speaking of the final shot, Live HDR Plus is a new feature that's on the Pixel 4, and that will essentially give you the final look of the photo before you actually tap the shutter button. So you don't need to wait for the image to process anymore. You can actually see exactly what you're going to get right as you tap the shutter button. Then there's also dual exposure controls, which gives you a little more manual control as you're framing up a shot so that you can customize the look a little more to how you want it rather than solely letting it be in control by the camera. That's nice always to have, but again, no full manual controls here on the Pixel 4 still. Portrait mode is even better, and it's now using that extra lens for additional support for creating that depth. You're going to have nicer looking bokeh effects around, so nicer blur effects around the subject, and it's in general a little more accurate than before. The only downside is Google hasn't really talked about any improvements to the video capabilities of the Pixel 4. Apple has spent a lot of time on this. Samsung has spent a lot of time on this. They didn't really mention anything about video on the Pixel 4, and that's a bit disappointing and makes me feel like not just a priority on this phone. This is a good example of seeing Live HDR Plus in action. You can see the colors look a lot more accurate on the Pixel 4 because it's all rendering that live rather than the Pixel 3, which is giving you the look before it actually does the image processing on it. So, you can take the shot afterwards and you can see, well, actually, Pixel 3 shot doesn't even look that great, but probably because the screen as I complained about before, is very dim. But you can see that the image now is a lot closer to what this was back in the preview mode. So again, that's the benefits of having that live preview. You can see much more what the image will look like before even having to attach that shutter button. And the other change is, of course, with the selfie camera, because the Pixel 3 had two cameras on the front, one wide angle and one normal lens. This is the standard going into wide. So you can see that was the change. Pretty handy if you wanted a group shot. Now the Pixel 4 only has that wide angle, so you're getting basically the same field of view, almost the same field of view as the wide angle shot, but that basically gives you the versatility to take those group selfies if that's something that you want. And of course, you can always just get closer to the frame if you want to just take a selfie like this without needing to stand all the way back or get a bunch of people in the shot. It's obviously very hard to test a lot of these camera stuff here in this little hands-on area, so we'll be testing the camera a lot more in the coming weeks and seeing how it stacks up to the iPhone 11 Pro, which at the moment we think is the best camera phone on the market. The next big thing is Google Assistant. It's the second gen Google Assistant and now can do actions a lot more faster and more things on device, so you don't really need an internet connection to do things like asking Assistant to set a timer, for example. I can keep asking it to do things without really pausing, like waiting for it to act. So I can just say, open photos and send a text to John, and you can sort of do all of this as things are happening on your phone. So if I'm using Instagram, for example, and someone texts me, and I can immediately just squeeze the phone for Assistant and ask it to send a response. All that pretty simple, don't need to tap anything, just pressing and squeezing the Google Assistant on the phone and talking to it. It's a much more natural way of interacting with Assistant, and again, it's a lot faster. I'll need to use it a little bit more to really see how and whether it will change how I use my phone, but it's definitely very exciting to see Google Assistant this much improvement on it on the Pixel 4. The Pixel 4 costs $799 and the Pixel 4 XL costs $899. A little bit of a bummer that we didn't see any kind of a price bump, because a lot of people were complaining that the Pixel 3 was simply priced too high. Again, these phones aren't really using premium materials. It's Gorilla Glass 5 on the front and back. There is IP68 water resistance and wireless charging, but still, like compared to the stainless steel iPhone 11 Pro, which starts at $1,000, it doesn't have much of a difference, especially when you're comparing this XL model to the iPhone 11 Pro. So it would have been nice to see a price cut on these, especially like how Apple did so with the iPhone 11, which brought its price down from $750 on the iPhone XR to $699 on the iPhone 11. But these prices are still, again, at least they're not $1,000, I guess you can say that. But again, this is again starting for the 64 gig model, so you're not getting 128 gigs as you might on other Android phones in a similar price range. The phone is available starting October 24th, and more importantly, available on all US carriers. There's no Verizon exclusive anymore. Go to any carrier in the US and you can nab one, and also from other retailers like Google itself, as well as Best Buy.